You ever get that urge to really understand something inside and out? Go way beyond just the headlines.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's exactly what we're doing for you today. We're taking a deep dive into a really fascinating period,
Yeah,
1971, for an artist named Bob Camblin, who was working right here in Houston.
that's right. And we've managed to pull together a really rich set of sources for this. We've got, exhibition announcements, newspaper
All
reviews,
right, oh,
even a really compelling letter Camblin wrote himself and a collection of his quotes, too. So our mission really is to give you a solid understanding of his art, his practice, and kind of what was driving him during this pretty significant year.
okay, so looking through this stuff, 1971 looks like it was just incredibly busy for Camblin. I
Hmm.
mean, we're seeing evidence of, what, 11 different exhibitions?
11, yeah. And that happening event you mentioned.
Right, that happening, which sounds, well, pretty intriguing.
Yep.
And it looks like he kicked off the year in a very collaborative way.
He definitely did. So early 71, Camblin was already working with Earl Staley. They called themselves B&E Productions. But then they brought Joe Tate into the mix.
Yeah, okay.
And renamed themselves BE&J Productions. The sources really suggest it was this time of intense creative exchange, maybe moving towards art that directly involved the public more.
Which kind of leads us right into January and this construction destruction beach event 3 in Galveston. I mean, for you listening, just picture this: nearly 200 people out on a beach
Yeah.
participating in making something that, well, ultimately gets destroyed.
It sounds like quite a spectacle, doesn't it? A
Yeah.
really large-scale collaborative happening. The whole idea was everyone gathers stuff they find on the beach, detritus.
Right, just junk.
Pretty much. And they work together to build this massive construction. We're talking over 30 feet tall.
Right.
And what's really interesting, there's this quote from Camblin in the Houston Chronicle at the time. He says, "Nicest thing about it, they're all enjoying it." So for him, it seems the focus wasn't just, the big final thing, but the shared experience, the process of making it together.
So it was about the act of creation itself.
Yeah.
And participation. And then this really dramatic ending.
Yeah.
They walk this huge thing into the sea and set it on fire at sunset.
Yeah. Talk about a statement on impermanence, right?
Vividly.
It brings up all these ideas about
Yeah.
creation and destruction being, intertwined, the temporary nature of stuff, and just the power of doing something together as a group.
It makes sense.
And also in January, we see another side of him through a student exhibition at Rice Memorial Center. What's interesting here is that the work, which was from classes taught by Camblin and Joe Tate,
Uh-huh.
it was actually selected and judged by the students themselves, along with, other artists like Earl Staley and Jack Boynton.
Oh, that's quite progressive for the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it suggests a really forward-thinking approach to teaching, like valuing the students' own perspectives in the whole evaluation process.
Okay, so then we move into February. Camblin and Staley, back under the B&E Productions name this time.
Right, just the two of them for this one.
They staged something called the Document Show at David Gallery.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this sounds like the kind of exhibition that really makes you stop and think, what even is art? They even put out an original statement of purpose.
Yes, and this statement, it really lays out their philosophy at that moment. They were digging into ideas about art as a form of definition, how we perceive things, and this key concept, the document as concrete perception.
Document is concrete perception. Okay, unpack that a bit.
Well, their argument was basically, if we want to really know something, it needs to be documented, right? So
Yeah.
therefore, art itself becomes a kind of documented knowledge.
Okay.
And they really emphasized mental participation as being crucial, suggesting that the real art happens in the mind of the viewer. The physical piece is just a record almost of that mental engagement.
That's fascinating.
And they explicitly mention their influences too: Dada, Duchamp's ready-mades, surrealism, happenings, environment art, and the newer conceptual and participation stuff.
Right. And the way they ended that statement is pretty bold. It says, this exhibition is art. Each individual show is art. Opening art attendance is art through participation. Without participation, there is no art. I mean, for you listening, that really throws down the gauntlet against the traditional idea of art just being an object on a wall, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It completely blurs the lines between the artist, the artwork, and, you, the audience, the participant.
Yeah.
Now, here's where it gets even stranger, maybe. A Houston Post article mentions that at the opening of this document show, people were given questionnaires.
Okay. Questionnaires about what?
Well, designed to gather both pertinent and impertinent data, is how the article puts it, suggesting that some of the info collected might even be interesting to, Sexual researchers, Masters and Johnson.
Get out. Seriously.
Seriously. It adds this completely unexpected, almost kind of humorous layer to their whole exploration of documentation and what counts as relevant information.
That's a wild detail. And apparently, uh, Dorman David, who was the gallery owner's brother,
Yeah, he was involved too.
he was actually selling forged documents, including a copy of the Texas Declaration of Independence. I mean, for you, this really complicates the whole idea of what a document even means in this show.
Exactly. It brings in this playful but also critical look at what's real, what's fake, what's original, what's a copy. It just reinforces their conceptual ideas about evidence and how we assign meaning to things. It's pretty clever, actually.
Yeah, it really sounds like it. Okay, so by March, Camblin's work seems to be getting noticed more widely, like beyond Houston.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. He was included in the third biennial national exhibition of prints and drawings up in North Dakota,
Okay.
and also in a show out in California called The Other Coast, which specifically featured 10 artists from Texas.
Ah, the other coast. Do we know what he showed there?
We do, actually, which is great for you listening. The works listed are Time Machine, 2 display stands, Shalimar Crystal, and Clone Jar.
Hmm. Interesting titles. Kind of sci-fi, maybe. Display stands. Clones.
Yeah, they definitely hint at his interests, maybe themes of science fiction, the whole act of display itself, perhaps even ideas about reproduction, artificiality.
Makes sense.
And his own reflection piece in the exhibition catalog is pretty direct. He wrote, and I'm quoting here, "It took him 42 years to begin to understand his work, and he doesn't see why it should be made any easier for the viewer."
Wow. That's blunt, isn't it? Basically saying, figure it out yourself.
Pretty much. He seems to really value your individual journey, the viewer's journey, and engaging with the work, no matter how, challenging or time-consuming that might be.
Okay. And also in March, he had a show closer to home,
Yeah.
right? In Dallas.
That's right, at the Cranfield Gallery. It was an exhibition alongside another artist, Lee Baxter Davis. Apparently, they'd both been in the gallery's opening show previously, and it's noted their main things were drawing, watercolor, and printmaking.
And there was a review, too. What did it say?
Yeah, a review in the Independent Press Telegram described Camblin's drawings specifically as, get this, funky, surrealistic, inventive, witty, and intricate.
Funky, surrealistic, witty, intricate.
Mm.
Okay. For you listening, that paints a much more vivid picture of his style, right?
It really does. It suggests this really interesting mix of, humor, unexpected images, but also a really careful, meticulous attention to detail in his drawing.
Okay, so the year keeps rolling, 1971. He's still going strong.
Oh, yeah, very active. In April, he has a solo show, just paintings and drawings this time, back at David Gallery in Houston.
Right.
Then later in the year, he's in the 34th Tarrant County Annual, showed works called Fish Target, #2, and Red Tide.
Red Tide. Sounds a bit ominous, maybe.
Could be. And he was also included in the big Texas Painting and Sculpture 71 exhibition at the Dallas Museum of Fine Arts. He showed a watercolor called Joe Tate's Jelly Bean Machine.
Joe
Oh,
Tate's
yeah.
Jelly Machine. Okay, so quite a range there from maybe ominous to playful.
Hmm.
It's clear for you he was working across different media, painting, drawing, watercolor, prints.
Exactly. Exploring a whole range of themes, it seems. And his involvement continued with Project South-Southwest in Fort Worth. That show got reviewed, too, in the Abilene Reporter News, which mentions his work alongside the other artists.
So really plugged into the regional scene.
Deeply, yeah. And even rounding out the year, he was part of the Rice Faculty exhibition, which just highlights his ongoing connection to the university setting.
But then things take a turn, right? Towards the end of the year, December, there's this significant event. Camblin writes a 3-page open letter. This sounds like a major moment.
It absolutely was. It was prompted because Joe Tate, his collaborator, was dismissed from his position at Rice University after just 1 year there. And Camblin felt, well, compelled is the word. He wrote this detailed letter, addressed it straight to the university president, Norman Hackerman, and others. He expressed feeling this strong sense of abuse and outrage, not just about Tate's dismissal, but also about changes being made to the studio policy.
And it wasn't just sticking up for his friend, was it? It seems like, for you listening, it's crucial to get that this letter really dug into Camblin's fundamental beliefs about art itself.
Yeah,
And education.
Exactly right. He explained right there in the letter that his main goal, both in his art and his teaching, was, in his words, to create humanity.
Create humanity.
Yeah, and he articulated this really powerful idea of seeing life itself as an in-process art form. So
Hmm.
for you, this really connects his actual art making directly to his core values, his whole understanding of what it means to be human.
And the ending of that letter, I mean, it sounds like he was basically putting his own job on the line for these principles.
He really was. He stated very clearly that if the university allowed itself to be, quote, used in this manner, he'd find it an environment that just wasn't compatible with how he approached art and teaching.
Wow.
And he ended it by saying, essentially, that he felt he had to live his life with the same honesty that he brought to his painting. I mean,
Intense.
it is. And the sources we have explicitly state that sending this letter seriously jeopardized his contract renewal. Any chance of tenure, basically out the window.
Wow. Okay, for you listening, that just underlines the depth of his convictions there. It really makes you wonder about the bigger picture, the artistic philosophy that would drive someone to take such a huge risk. Luckily, we also have this collection of his quotes, right, which might give us some more insight into that thinking.
They really do. When you look at his thoughts and statements from around this time, you can definitely see these recurring themes that tied directly into what he was doing in 1971.
Like what?
Well, think about those collaborative happenings and his focus on audience participation. That connects directly with the quote, like, we may be moving to a participatory type of art. It just clicks.
Yeah, that makes total sense with the Galveston Beach event and his whole questioning of what art is in that document show.
Right. That seems to align perfectly with quotes like, art is and it isn't and now everyone knows. Or that really direct one, religion, belief. If I believe it's art, then it is. He's constantly pushing those boundaries for you.
Definitely.
And his reasons behind writing that really strong protest letter, this whole idea of seeing one's life as an in-process art form that's echoed in quotes like, art for art's sake has become art for life's sake, or art for my sake, or art for survival's sake.
Ah, okay. So for you, it shows this really integrated view, right? Art isn't just this separate thing over here. It's tied into everyday life, into ethics.